This podcast is presented in partnership with Rewatchable Media, home to several great podcasts and YouTube channels covering TV shows, movies, and culture. Find out more on rewatchable.media. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Shane.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent. That wasn't too creepy, right?
I hope not.
Good week to everyone. This is DadPodz, the podcast for dads. We are still doing we're officially titled like DadPodz presents the unofficial MCU podcast. Is that correct? Something like
Mhm.
that. Yeah. So we're continuing our MCU discussion, which is gonna be a while because we're sort of smack dab in the middle of it. Let's get right into it. Do we have any news and notes for the week?
News and notes, there actually were several
hmm
things.
hmm
So let's see. We got a little bit of pushback of all the MCU projects with release dates announced.
Yeah. So basically, I think what they said was, I think it's either the February or March date of 2022. I think was going to be Doctor Strange. That's not going to have any movies released on it
Hmm.
now. And then they're just pushing Doctor Strange back to the May release. I think Thor 4 goes back to the summer release, and everything just gets pushed back one.
So is this all pandemic related?
I think it's just production related. I think, despite the fact that we're in the midst of the pandemic, we're going to have 4 Marvel movies released in 2021. Starting with Black Widow, we had Shang-Chi. You seen it yet?
I have not seen it yet.
Um, and then, Eternals comes out in like a week. And then, Spider-Man is still slated for that Christmas release, basically. So,
Right. Oh, by the
so
way, Eternals reactions are coming in hot and heavy and fast
and good.
and very good. Uh,
Mhm.
these people that are giving reactions and potentially spoilers, those people are jerks because we have no way of having seen it yet.
Yeah. Go to hell. Spoiler, guys.
Yeah, that's not cool. You were not
Yeah.
granted a pass to see this early so that you could spoil it for people who have zero chance of seeing the movie.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a movie from 11 years ago and we're going to spoil it, but that's okay.
Totally.
But yeah, so uh don't spoil movies, but uh I'm excited for that movie. I
Yes.
think I'm mostly excited because I don't know anything about it.
I know very little. Yeah. I've read some of the comics. The biggest thing is the reactions are very, very positive,
Mhm.
and the takes are that it's very unique. I'm very into that.
I would hope so. Um, so the other bit of news, and this might fall under the rumor category because it's not an official announcement. Um, there is this rumor that in 2022 they're going to start production on a standalone Hulk film with Mark Ruffalo. This was the idea is that it's going to sort of follow the World War Hulk comic line,
Yep.
which was a lot of it was borrowed in Thor Ragnarok. A little bit of it was told there. But yeah, so that was that. This is courtesy of Geeks Worldwide on Twitter.
Yeah. Apparently, this is a reasonably accurate source or a source that has had some credit to it.
Yes, it's a source that has broken similar news prior. This is not an outrageous claim that they would do a Hulk movie. Um, one sort of fact about Hulk is that I believe the first Hulk movie was released by Paramount, right, as
Yeah.
the studio, and they have been total jerk about allowing Disney to release a Hulk standalone movie. They allow the sort of the character to be in Avengers movies and other movies, but standalone they haven't allowed it yet. But I imagine it's just coming around to their right price.
I believe it's actually Universal, and somehow
Right.
the
Okay. Universal,
distribution
not
was,
Paramount.
but it
Mhm,
was, I think Paramount was somehow involved. Anyhow, it's
mhm,
Universal that owns the rights. They have the right of first refusal. So the problem would
mhm,
be Disney would make it, and then Universal would, of course, say, like, of course, we want to distribute this and make a
mhm.
lot of money.
Right.
So yet again, it comes down to money.
Right. And that's what I think. If it happens, it's just that Paramount or Universal has gotten the right price that they want.
Exactly, because there is a price. Right now, they're getting no money. by saying,
Right.
we will distribute this movie that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. And to be fair to any of these other companies other than Disney, Disney's the only movie distributor right now that's making money.
Right.
You
But
know,
like many things in life, this just comes down to price.
exactly. So anyway, we are talking about the first Avengers movie tonight.
We are.
I don't know what number this falls in our ranking. It's somewhere around number 9 or 10. Um, and so we're gonna do something a little different. We're not gonna sort of do the big recap where we go through every scene and all that stuff. I'm gonna try a 60-second recap.
Oh boy, are you ready?
I am. Mike's gonna time me.
I'm gonna set the timer. 3,
Okay.
2, 1, go.
Okay. Loki is our big bad for this film. He is working to bring an army of alien invaders to conquer Earth. For that, he needs the Tesseract. Remember the Tesseract? And some other tech to open a portal. To combat him, Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. Enlists Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, and Thor to go along with the already in S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Widow and eventually Hawkeye, who spent the majority of this film under mind control from the aforementioned Loki. Our heroes really don't get along, and as we see in most team ups, they fight each other more than they fight the enemy. They eventually rally around the death of Phil Coulson, RIP, and fight the invading army of Chitauri in a spectacular battle across Manhattan. In the end, Iron Man makes the hero play where he's able to redirect a nuclear missile through the portal, blow up the Chitauri base, and they close the portal, saving the world. Our heroes are now a team, vowed to come together when the world needs saving. The Avengers. In our most important post-credits scene to date, we learn that Thanos, the Mad Titan, was the mysterious bigger bad pulling the strings, manipulating Loki and the Chitauri.
Very good.
How'd
You
I
heard the
do?
alarm go off.
I did it. Oh man, I didn't hear the alarm. So I was like on minute 5, something like that.
Yeah, you're about 5 seconds over.
Well, sue me. So yeah, so that's the movie. We did it. You wanna wrap it up here?
We could, but we have to do our hot takes.
We have to do our hot take. So let's talk about it. So you go first.
Sure. My hot take. Loki's actions in this movie are so heinous, so heinous, that he deserves no redemption in either Thor Ragnarok nor in Loki, the TV show. Especially not in Loki, the TV show.
Yeah, where he's the hero. Yeah.
He's the hero and had no redemption in Ragnarok.
Right. And because they pull him directly after this movie and they plop him into the TVA right there, right?
Yeah.
So I think even in this film at some point, either Maria Hill, I think it's Maria Hill, or Black Widow indicates that he killed like 80 people over the course of 2 or 3 days.
80 people, that's before the Battle of New York.
That's before the Battle of New York, where there's just carnage everywhere, right? Where he's just destroying Manhattan with his army. He tries to kill all of the Avengers.
Mhm.
So yeah, bad guy. Shouldn't have been redeemed.
Very bad guy. This is the power of making someone a protagonist. Everyone loves him in Loki.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent hot take. My hot take, Black Widow wins this movie.
Yeah.
And the reason is so there's a couple reasons. One, we talked about the Avengers Age of Ultron, we talked about that movie has a huge show me don't tell me problem where it's just telling you things and not showing you. The first scene where we see Black Widow, we realize why she's part of the scene, part of the team. That first scene, probably spoiler alert, it's my favorite scene in the movie. She's tied to a chair, and she fights a bunch of people, and you get to see why this human that doesn't have superpowers is part of the Avengers. She also kind of brings Hulk into the team. She's also the one that closes the portal at the end. So there's lots of reasons why Black Widow kind of wins this movie.
Yeah, totally. I think a great scene that illustrates this is the scene with her and Loki, where strictly through conversation, she uncovers his plan. The characters spend a good 20 minutes trying to figure out what's Loki up to. What's his game? They can't figure it out. And it's Black Widow.
There's a lot of what's his game kind of like, is it really a game?
Pretty much no.
What's his, because they use what's his game, they use what's his play.
Yeah. Old Whedon took out the thesaurus to figure out every possible way to state the same thing. Hey, what's this angle? What's this guy doing?
Yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah. You kind of almost expect them to have like a 19, like talking like they're in a 1930s or 40s movie. Fast and all that.
Well, it's Loki.
We've talked about this in Captain Marvel, and I'll take this one. Nick Fury has a beeper that calls Captain Marvel. He should have used it.
Yeah, I'm gonna justify that he did use it. We just didn't see it.
Yeah, so she gets there at the end, like 3 weeks later, and is like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Oh, a lot of destruction here. You needed to have called me 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't want this.
Later. Yeah,
bye.
That's exactly what happened.
Exactly. The scene.
I hope there's a deleted scene or a scene that we find out later on where they flash back to whenever this movie 2011 and we see that.
Yeah, that would be great.
My next hot take, Hawkeye. Really cool arrows. You should also carry a gun.
Yeah.
There's no reason for him to not carry a gun. He doesn't seem against it.
No, he doesn't seem like he's against it. Guns are far more efficient in doing the kinds of things that he wants to do. Like, he's an assassin soldier kind of dude.
Well, he demonstrates why he needs the arrows sometimes. He's got these special arrows that have explosives, mostly just explosives. There's no net casting arrow that he ever shoots. He even shoots an arrow that hacks into a computer.
Yeah.
That's quite an arrow. So
that was pretty cool.
Carry that, but also carry a gun.
Yeah.
Black Widow carries guns.
Black Widow carries several guns. Now the arrow that is fired, and like you've got to get that, like it goes into like a USB port or something like that.
2 USB ports at the same time.
That's so anybody, and this is 2012 or 2011, something like this. Like anybody that's ever tried to put in because they didn't have USB-Bs back then, right? It's just all USB-As.
Yes.
So you have to have it just the right way. Everybody that ever has tried to put in a USB jump drive into, or whatever, into a USB port, you've always put it in the wrong way first.
Yes.
It's just universally. So he's got to get the spin rate on the arrow, right? Like, because he's not just shooting the arrow, it doesn't go without spin. I imagine it's rotating. So he's got to get this. That's an amazing shot.
That's why he's the world's greatest archer.
Yes.
That's all he needs to demonstrate that one time. All he has to do is actually get the USB in straight the first time. And
with his hand.
Yeah.
With his hand. It doesn't even have to be with an arrow.
Greatest archer right there. So my next thing is Iron Man. Why didn't you just make some armor for Hawkeye and Black Widow? At this point, he's made it for Rhodey.
Yeah. And this is also your point. Like, where's Rhodey?
Yep. Also, yeah, where's Rhodey? Nary mentioned he's working for the government. Shield is supposed to be the government.
Yep.
Rhodey could kind of use you here.
We know that from Iron Man 3, which is later after this movie, but shortly after this movie, that Tony's armor can get from like Malibu to the East Coast in like what, 12 minutes?
Yeah.
Something like that. We're not talking about, Rhodey's on, like, there's no excuse with like Captain Marvel because she's traveling interstellar. Rhodey's just going cross country.
Yeah.
Should have been over in New York.
They had TV crews showing this battle. Rhodey knows what's going on.
Yes, Rhodey knows what's going on. This is a dereliction of duty on his part. Probably, should share a prison cell with Tony.
100%. The other people that should have been involved? Hammer Industries. Look, I know he went to jail, right? Someone confiscated those drones.
Yep. From Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Iron Man 2 exists in this continuity.
Yeah. It better. It happened right before this movie or something like that.
Use your drones, man.
No.
This is an all hands on deck fight.
Yeah. You could also argue, like, where are Thor's friends? The Warriors 3, which there was 4 of them.
He's got a bunch of friends.
Yeah. Like, he could have called them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the Bifrost is destroyed, but whatever.
Oh, that's right. The dark magic that brought Thor.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, is this a good plan by Loki and Thanos?
I don't think so.
Okay. Um, because do they need the Tesseract to get the army to the Earth? So in uh Avengers Infinity War, which I think we're going to cover pretty soon,
Yeah.
um, they just used regular spaceship and they do the whole Guardians of the Galaxy, they go through the little hexagon.
Right.
They could have done that here, right? Like the technology is not such that they couldn't travel interstellar like 8 years before.
So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy is all of 3 years after this or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, maybe two.
So Hexagon tech clearly, well,
Mhm.
Hexagon tech existed back in the time of Captain Marvel.
Yes, because we know that the Kree got here with just regular spaceships. So it's unclear why they need the Tesseract to open a portal, like why that helps.
Yeah, this seems like they're lazy.
It does seem like a little bit of lazy. Um, and even further, so if it's so we know Thanos what his goal is, right? He wants to get all the Infinity Stones.
Yes.
So the Tesseract, spoiler alert, is an Infinity Stone,
Mhm.
the Space Stone. Also, this scepter that Loki's got, which he didn't have in the Thor movie,
Mm-mm.
gets that here. Presumably, he gets that from the Chitauri and everything like that. Also has an Infinity Stone in it, the Mind Stone.
Yes.
Why is Thanos giving an Infinity Stone to Loki so that Loki can get him another Infinity Stone?
Hmm. That's a misallocation of resources.
I agree. Like Loki's a frost giant. I think giving a frost giant two Infinity Stones is probably enough to have him like he's bigger than badder than than Thanos at that point.
But Thanos at this point has no Infinity Stones.
Well, presumably he had the Mind Stone, right? At some point,
Oh, right.
he had to have had the Mind Stone before he gave it to Loki.
Yeah, this is poor planning.
Really poor planning. Really bad idea.
Maybe
For,
Thanos becomes a better executive as time goes on. So at this point in time, he's feeling things out. He knows
yeah.
how to bring an army. He's raised several planets. He's gotten Gamora at this point in time.
Mhm.
He doesn't know good central planning and forecasting, and he's done a really poor
Mhm.
job of it.
Yeah. Because let's really face it. Like he nails everything in Infinity War. Like he
Oh
has
yeah,
got an answer for every counterpunch that the Avengers throw at him.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what 7 years after this, something like that, 8 years.
yeah. This would be Thanos's next years if he were Steve
Mhm.
Jobs. This is Thanos really not knowing what people want. This
Yeah,
isn't Thanos with the iPod yet. That we get
no,
later on. That's Thanos.
no. The later on Thanos, the one where he takes his helmet off and everything like that, that's where we get the Steve Jobs that's like already rescued Pixar and done that, and he's come back to Apple as a conquering CEO.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in the beige box of Apple phase of Thanos here.
Mm-hmm. Where it's in the it takes $12,000 to buy a PC
Right.
or a personal Mac, and you know, uh, Bill Gates started selling the crap for $800 where you can get a PC, and and Apple was way behind.
Oh yeah, totally. So we know that Iron Man makes a big deal of saying that he read the briefing. In fact,
Hmm.
he makes fun of all the other Avengers. Didn't anyone else read the briefing?
Yeah,
And
because
yet,
he becomes an expert on interstellar something.
sure.
Hmm.
However, when Thor has put Loki aside, Iron Man comes in hot and tackles Thor, which
Right.
starts the huge fight in the forest.
Uh-huh.
He should have known who Thor was at this point in time.
So is Thor a friend? So according to the like Shield and the like, is Thor friendly after Thor one?
After Thor 1, Shield should know because remember, they allow him to try to grab the hammer
Hmm.
when he's unworthy to see what's going to happen.
Right.
Hawkeye sees him there. So people know who Thor is. They see the
Hmm.
destroyer come in, they see Thor sacrifice
Fight
himself.
and do it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they should
Hmm.
know that Thor's one of the good ones. So I blame that fight on Iron Man.
Oh, he's total. I mean, I blame most fights on Iron Man. Let's
Yeah.
face it. It's basically, him just, not being able to control his emotions.
Right. So this is yet another uh another debt in the
Hmm.
Iron Man sins.
Yeah. He really, as we get closer, I mean, an Endgame is coming much later, but as we get there, we're gonna see like his sacrifice is like it's not only like it's called for,
Hmm.
it's
Oh yeah.
necessary. He's got to be the one that sacrifices because he's made all this happen.
Yeah, Black Widow's really worried about the red in her ledger. Tony doesn't seem to worry about it, but he's got quite a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, Other things that concern me.
Hmm.
So we see that Shield has planes that have tactical nukes on them,
Right.
one of which is blown up by a bazooka
Hmm.
by Nick Fury. The other one gets away and launches on the island of Manhattan.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, hello, Shield has tactical nukes on their helicarrier.
Yeah. It seems unsafe.
That helicopter was about to crash.
Yep. And as you rightly point out, in shortly after this movie, Captain America: Winter Soldier, three of them fall down out of the sky
Over DC.
over DC. Do they all have nukes in them?
They should, if based on what we see of these planes. These are just regular
There were
planes.
These are just regular F-16s or F-18s or something like that.
Yeah. Um, this does not seem safe.
No, no, this is really really reckless in terms of how they're allocating where their nuclear weapons go. Now maybe they learned from this and they're like, you know what, we're not going to have nuclear weapons in any of our helicarriers anymore.
However, they had three helicarriers.
Yes, they did.
So I yet again I question the shadowy cabal that runs Shield at this point in time.
As you should.
Yeah.
um this is a hot take. Uh this is not a very diverse movie. Making Nick Fury black doesn't make this movie diverse. I think he's the only other major person. He's the only person of color in this movie that has any sort of screen time at all.
Pretty
Is that?
is he the
That's
only one
pretty
with
sure.
speaking lines?
I think so.
Wow.
I think
That's
so.
pretty bad.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. So this is so when we start to think about our culture as sort of becoming more woke or however you want to refer to it, um, this is still a modern movie. This has only happened like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were, you know, unable to do anything in this movie other than, you know, Nick Fury. And
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson at this point had already been a superstar that was already in the Star Wars trilogy.
Right.
He was in, a whole mess of movies. So yeah,
It could have been just like, some side characters. The kid playing Galaga. It
could have. I mean, that would have been an easy place to put like somebody person of color.
it just shows that they really weren't trying. And give credit to people now, they're doing a better job. But
Mhm.
this is sort of
Yeah,
highlighting the issue. Whenever people complain, oh, it's also woke, I'm like,
yeah.
it hasn't been that long. And
Hmm.
I think if you really want to tally it up, we're not even close.
No, yeah, absolutely not. Because I mean, as we pointed out, like 6 years after this, they did Doctor Strange, where they did like the worst case of whitewashing.
Yeah.
Um, and but I will point out, like we talked about the Eternals earlier. Apparently, there are two characters in there that have been regendered
Yes.
to actually, I believe, women of color. So
Right.
one of them is the amazingly great Salma Hayek. So
Yeah. And
uh,
and to that end, if any fanboy claims like, whoa, this is not true to the Eternals, no one cared about the Eternals before, so no
right,
one knows about these characters.
exactly. No one cared about the Avengers before the Avengers came out. To be honest with you, this is a movie that I mean, we can talk about this. Like this might be a good spot to talk about this, but we've talked about the fact that these are B-level characters that are carrying this film.
Mhm.
This was massive when it came out.
Yep.
This movie was bigger than any of the previous movies by far. Um, this kind of made the MCU, to be fully completely honest on it.
Right.
It's it's this launched the MCU into a stratosphere that I don't even know that they anticipated it would be.
Yeah, pretty much. And at the time, a lot of the movie going crowd thought of this as a risk.
Hmm.
I remember thinking this and just even reading it in the press that, oh, they're planning all these movies. They're going to have everyone together. Do we even know if people are going to want to see this? Because
Hmm.
they had to start making this movie before movies such as Captain America had come out.
Right.
So,
Before Thor came out, before Iron Man 2 came out. So really, they'd only had the success of Iron Man 1.
right.
And of those movies that we talked about, like, and Hulk, of those movies, there's 5 movies that come out before this. 2 of them are good.
Yep. Right. So there were no guarantees. I think
Yeah.
of it very similar to when the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out. They made
Hmm.
all 3 of them at the same time,
Right.
taking a big bet, and that was considered a really big bet at the time because
Hmm.
you didn't know that they were going to turn out okay. You didn't know that people were
Yeah.
going to want to see the first one.
Yeah. Peter Jackson, who is a director royalty now, had only done like some zombie movies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, it's
kind
the
of weird
Frighteners or
horror
something like
movies.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't a household name. Now he's an Oscar winner and can do Beatles documentaries. But um,
Right. But sometimes big bets work out.
mhm.
So
So
our favorite scenes.
let's talk about some favorite scenes. So what were your favorite scenes?
I think I'm gonna say, I'm gonna pick the aforementioned forest fight.
Hmm.
That would be up there with one of my favorite scenes. It is a little cliche that every time the heroes meet, they have to fight.
But this is
But
the first time in the MCU they did
right. And so
that.
it was fun to see. I am gonna say Thor Thor was out to murder Captain America.
That's right. Hmm.
100%. He has no idea the shield works.
Yeah. Well, he was also 100% trying to kill Iron Man too. Like he
And
launches,
yeah,
he like throws the whole like lightning at him.
yeah, he totally was. Now, at least in his defense there, Iron Man came and tackled him out of nowhere. So he has no idea who Iron
Sure,
Man is.
maybe he was justified to go ahead and kill Iron Man.
Right. But Captain America comes in and he says, "Hey, stop fighting." And
Yeah,
Thor's like, "Oh, I'll show you. I'm gonna."
yeah.
He
Put the
knows
hammer
what.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, he knows what people are like.
Hmm.
This is equivalent if he could have been doing that to Natalie Portman, right? He doesn't know. He has no idea
Yeah.
this guy has a shield that is made of vibranium.
Yeah. Let's not talk about all the other things they may have been doing to Natalie Portman.
Hmm.
Whoa. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good scene. It's mostly Iron Man versus Thor, kind of
Mhm.
back and forth. Um, it's it's uh it's actually a well lit nighttime in the dark action scene,
Yes.
which is kind of our we've it's something we really like, but then when it's not executed properly, it's ugh. But but this one is well lit. It's a good scene.
Yeah, totally.
So with special shout outs to the grand finale, which is, and we'll talk about that maybe after this one. My
Mhm.
favorite is we also talked about this, the fight where Black Widow is introduced. She is tied to a chair. She is being interrogated by a bunch of like Russian arms dealers or something.
Yeah.
And in a very funny moment, Coulson calls. He's like, put the woman on the phone, threatens the Russians, uh, puts her on the phone, tells her that, she needs to come in, get out of there quickly. And she does. She just puts the phone down and boom, she just like beats the crap out of like 4 guys, literally with her hands tied behind her back.
Yeah.
Really
It's
well
yeah,
choreographed fight scene.
it's great. It shows Black Widow in her element is pretty much always in control, even when you think she's not.
Mhm. Exactly. And it's a very kind of creepy scene from a Joss Whedon standpoint. For a lot of the same reasons that we talk about Tarantino sometimes being creepy. It's very fetish.
Okay. No shoes.
She's not wearing shoes, very cleavagey, um, but it is well choreographed.
Yeah.
Well choreographed. Um, and you know, it's hard to believe that the same director directed this movie as Age of Ultron, because this is head and shoulders above that movie. This movie doesn't have any of the sort of narrative problems that Age of Ultron has. This is well paced. there's only one sort of awkward sort of I'm going to tell you what's going on versus
Mhm.
showing you, and it's when Thor tells the rest of the Avengers what Loki's plan is with the Chitauri, right?
Right.
It takes all of 30 seconds, and you just kind of pass over it really quick, and everybody just kind of nods, and it's like, okay, that sounds fine.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I even forgot that. I remember it now that you bring it up, but like, yeah,
uh,
that part is a little awkward. But otherwise, the movie moves along really well. And even though it has all of this, a little bit of baggage, right? It's got to bring, it's the first time we brought together the rest of the MCU.
mhm,
All other
mhm,
MCU movies, they got to be solo affairs. This is our first ensemble.
yeah, and then we have to talk about the grand finale where they destroy most of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that there's a whole lot of movies that we had seen up to that point where you see sort of this level of destruction of a major city where you're kind of like, and it's in a comic book. Most comic book movies sort of to this point had minimized sort of the damage around it because it was like, oh, we've got superheroes. They're gonna stop uh the consequences from happening, right? Superman's always gonna stop the world from being destroyed. Batman's always gonna stop, you know, these horrible things from happening. And this is somewhere where the consequences are real and right in front of you. And we see the consequences from just this battle all the way up through, phase three when we introduce Spider-Man, where all of a sudden, you know, that first Spider-Man movie is very much tied to just this event.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that they allow the events of the movies to have influence over the rest of the MCU.
Yeah. And that's unique to this. Like we saw it a little bit in the Nolan universe for Batman. Though those were largely um, results that were, or I'm sorry, effects that were felt mostly by just a couple of characters, right? It wasn't worldwide.
Yeah,
Think back to you know the Indiana Jones trilogy. They're told out of order, and they kind of don't really matter to one
right.
another.
Yeah, it's a fun bit of storytelling to have stakes that carry through your universe. And I think that's what's unique to the MCU, this sort of
Mhm.
meta storytelling where you can have an event, one thing, those the repercussions will spill over across other movies.
Yeah, nothing is out of place.
Mhm.
It's great storytelling does this where if you show something happen in the first scene and you take the time to show it, that better come back to mean something later. And even if it's just, um, you show a piece of cheese or something, and it turns out that a character is allergic to cheese later on, it's you can't leave little things hanging. You can't leave something uh, not explained. And the MCU to this point has largely done that, and that's to its credit.
Right. Chekhov's Infinity Stone, if you will. Shane, do you have any dad takes, dad observations?
So, dad servations. So, the humor in this movie, and and in fairness, there's not a lot of it. A lot of the humor comes from Stark, being kind of quippy and kind of sarcastic, uh, and just kind of the the chewing of the scenery by Tom Hiddleston as Loki, who we have to give a special shout out. Great villain. But one joke in particular, which is kind of I think the most famous joke from this movie, that's not just a meme. But Tony Stark arrives at the helicarrier, and he points out that one of the Shield technical analysts is playing Galaga.
Mhm.
He's like, "You didn't think we know, but we did." And it's like it's a really funny moment in kind of a really serious part of the movie, which you kind of need to have in a movie like that. And our kids don't know what the hell Galaga is.
Yeah, yeah. A
No
Galaga joke
one,
is that's a Gen
yeah,
X joke.
oh, absolutely. No one under 35 when this movie came out, and I was just around 35, I guess, when this movie came out, or probably a little older, but we don't need to talk about that. came out knew what Galaga was. Or
Hmm.
Galaga is a space shooting game, kind of like Space Invaders, but slightly more advanced.
Yeah. So not only did they not use Space Invaders, they used Galaga to
Mm-hmm.
make it slightly more obscure.
And much more obscure. I mean, I think probably is Galaga the better game?
It definitely is, but it came out
Yeah,
later.
yeah, it came out later. I remember Galaga, and maybe you agree with me. So Galaga is the arcade game that you had at the pizza joint,
Hmm.
and it was the one that was on the table, and the controller was the ball, right?
Hmm.
Wasn't that Galaga?
Yeah, well, you had like it was a joystick based game. You had to
Was
hit
it
a
a
button.
joystick?
You definitely had to hit a button to shoot.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think you could spin your spaceship around with a little ball, and then you'd have the button on the side.
I think that's Centipede.
I think that's Centipede.
I think you've confused Centipede with Galaga. That is a Gen X sin right there.
I apologize. Um, I stand prostrate before you
Hmm.
as someone who made the mistake. Though I want to say that you could make Galaga in that sort of way too, where you could have the wheel.
Maybe. Oh,
Anyway, but this was an interesting sort of approach. So much of the humor in all of the MCU sort of does sort of hit those same notes. So it's like a very Gen X, some even boomer jokes,
right.
um, where they're not specifically targeting humor wise millennials and or Gen Z or whatever we want to call the young people.
Right. Yeah. I think this happens more in phase one, where the appeal of the MCU at that time are Gen X dads, let's face it, who are going to drag their families to see this. As we go further along, the humor starts to change.
Mm-hmm.
The targeting of all the movies change because now Marvel starts to be for everyone, which to the betterment of it. But that I think this is this is the dividing line of hey, Gen X dads, you're dragging the family to this, and then
Mm-hmm.
later on, it's like, oh, everyone's into it.
Sure. And I wonder if it's because just the availability of certain media in certain settings. So think about like I'm thinking about like the joke in Captain America Civil War where Spider-Man is makes the joke about remember that old movie Star Wars
Hmm.
Empire Strikes Back
Yeah.
when they're fighting Giant Man, and I just think about that and I'm like, how many Gen Z know about Star Wars Empire Strikes Back? And I was like, well, probably a lot of them, just given the fact that this is all so available for them.
Right. And Star Wars is still popular.
Mhm. Something like our generation maybe wasn't as um, into say movies and media from the 60s. We probably got into a lot of music from the 60s because classic rock was always a thing.
Right.
But something like movies from the 60s, I have a big, huge, like open space where like there's a couple that I know of. Like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is one of my favorite movies of all time. But there's a lot of movies from the early 60s that I probably don't have any idea about.
Sure.
Um, but I think there's our kids probably know a whole heck of a lot about movies from the 1980s.
Oh yeah, totally. There is something about the aesthetic from them that fits kids now, but the availability, the fact that you can get stuff on streaming,
Yeah,
stuff like my kids know about the Goonies,
yeah.
filmed in Oregon.
I think
That's
our kids were all introduced to the Goonies at the same time.
they were a little dad aside there,
Yeah,
which is
that side.
that side. You asked this question as well. Is this the most memeable MCU movie?
So I think it's really memeable. I do think that Endgame probably becomes more memeable
Mhm.
later on, but this is the most memeable to this point, certainly, and I think it's the second most memeable of our movies.
Hmm.
We obviously got the "I got that" reference
Right.
meme, which is used all over the place. Captain America got the reference about flying monkeys
Right.
because he's from the 40s and he knew what was Wizard of Oz was. Uh, what a meme that's not used very much any longer. When when Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk at the end, he is he has the line, "I'm always angry."
That's
How
my
he
secret cap.
secret.
Yeah.
That's something that became a meme. The puny god meme, when Hulk also throws Loki all over the place. That was a meme.
Hmm.
We have a Hulk. Lots of these are Hulk related.
Yeah.
Was a meme. Tony Stark. At the end, when Loki is beaten, he says, "I'll take that drink now." I think those are all sort of memeable moments. Do you remember any other memes from this movie?
Gosh, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I don't think I can't. I honestly can't think of any. I think you've hit the major ones. There's
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm actually trying to think of other movies. There's no single one movie that has a lot. So Endgame is heavily memeable because that whole portals scene becomes,
Uh-huh.
well, I'll call it a video meme. People have reproduced
Sure.
that so many. Anytime something
Yeah.
that you like overcomes the odds, you do the
Hmm.
portal scene with a new video
Exactly.
edit. And I'll love it and I'll watch it every time over and over again.
It's great. There's never been a bad sort of at the end of the portals meme
Yeah.
video. Whether you're talking about Black Lives Matter, you're talking about your favorite sports team comes from behind in a big game. It does. They're all good.
I really like the Biden winning meme of
Sure.
that portals thing.
Sure.
That's a huge favorite. I've not seen a video meme from this movie. I've only
This
seen
one.
the GIFs.
Yeah, the gifs and just the single screen shots. They're all good. They're all good memes.
Right.
They're all good memes. Like dogs. There's no
Yeah.
bad memes.
There's no bad ones.
Um, yeah, except anything with the frog. Don't Pepe the Frog. Don't play those memes.
Well, okay. So, another aside. Pepe the Frog, the creator of that, solid guy.
Sure.
It came from a web comic.
Hmm.
He is rightfully trying to take back his creation because screw the people taking it from him.
Yeah.
Pepe the Frog existed way before them. They suck.
Yeah.
They don't get to use it.
Yeah. Pepe the Frog, not inherently racist.
No, never was.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the Avengers, the Marvel's
That's the
Avengers.
movie.
I think technically the title is Marvel's Avengers,
Hmm.
right? Or Marvel's The Avengers. I don't know. The
Okay.
Avengers, first one.
I never knew that.
My son Elliot, just one word review of this movie. Solid.
Hmm. Concise.
Sometimes he's got lots of words to describe a movie. This one just solid. Where does your family fall on this one?
At the time we watched it, they liked it. This
Uh-huh.
carried them through. It was, yeah, good. I think solid would probably be what they
I
would say.
think when you're doing like a project that you did where you're sort of introducing your family during the pandemic to the MCU where they hadn't really seen anything.
Mhm.
This is if you're going to go in order, this is one to really accentuate because we talked about it. Those early movies, you know, phase 1 and phase 2, there's some stinkers in there.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to if you don't sort of talk this one up, you might
Yeah.
lose them.
Thor almost sank the whole endeavor, to be perfectly honest.
And Thor 2 comes after this.
My kids do not know that Thor 2 exists,
That's
and
probably just as well.
they will never know.
They will never know. There was an Infinity Stone in there. It does not matter.
I just told them, hey, there's an Infinity Stone. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Honestly, the best part of Thor 2 is what they do with Endgame.
And they've seen Endgame and they like it. They did
Mhm.
not need to see Thor 2 to understand it.
Yeah. So that's Marvel's Avengers. This is DadPod. This was fun. Um please join us next week for I want to say are we doing Infinity War next week?
Uh,
I
we're
think
gonna
we
do
are.
something. That's
We're
for
gonna
sure.
do something. We
All right.
definitely will. Um so yeah, so until next time.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Michael.